Hi friends. Sharing this story on video, it's kind of one of these things that it just won't leave me alone. And I haven't really understood why God wanted me to share it until just a few minutes ago. And part of the reason why I'm sharing something that I already know the story is because God is connecting it to where I am now. And here's my question for all of you. Do you have any prayers that have not been answered yet? Well, here's the story of a point I think that God is making in my life, and maybe it applies to yours. When I started doing ministry in the village, a fire brought me there. And I wasn't intending to do ministry. I was intending to take some items from my house to help some people get back on their feet after 10 families lost everything. I didn't know that I was going to be starting a ministry. Now, in my heart, I had wanted to get outside the building of the church. I had wanted to go. I wanted to be able to, I know this sounds cliche, but I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted just to share who Jesus was in my life, and I just had so much overflow that I just needed somewhere to go with it. And I had no idea when I went there that it would become a ministry. Well, one day while I was in the village, I went to one of the ladies' apartments, and I noticed on her stove she had I guess what you might call a skillet. It wasn't much of a skillet. It was charred, it was old, it was missing its handle. It was a poor excuse to use as a tool to cook with. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's dangerous. And I thought that could easily start a fire again. So I felt the need to replace her skillet with something that would work better. Now, the easiest thing for me to do, which I often did, would be to go to the store, go to Target, and just buy a skillet and be done with it. But, I felt a check with the Lord, and I felt the Lord let me know that I wasn't supposed to go buy the skillet. So, since the Lord had often had different people, friends and people in my church that they knew I worked with people in need, so I would often get furniture, bags of clothing, bags of household items. So I was just expecting someone to call me and say, hey, Barbara, I've got a bag full of kitchen stuff, and there was going to be this great skillet in there, and I was going to be able to give it to Lachelle and solve her problem. But that didn't happen. So after I prayed this prayer and asked God for a skillet, it wasn't maybe within 2 weeks after I prayed this prayer, I was driving home one day from Sunday school. Now, the town I lived in, sometimes if you had something that you wanted someone to give away, you might write on a piece of cardboard free, and you might see a bike outside by somebody's mailbox, or you might see a piece of furniture that someone was just allowing you to stop and pick up. Well, when I was driving down the road, I thought I saw something in the mailbox, and it looked like a skillet, and I was like, no way. Who puts a skillet out by their mailbox? I'd never seen anything small like that. So I had to turn around. So I turned around, I went into the driveway, and I parked my car, and I got out, and by the mailbox, there were 2 skillets. Now, I am just floored by this because I know that those skillets are for me. Now, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that it's about sharing God's stories. So I had to go knock on the door of the house, and this man answered, and I said, excuse me, sir. I said, I noticed that you have 2 skillets out by your mailbox. And he said, yes. And I told him that I knew some people that needed a skillet, and was it okay if I took them? And he said, well, that's why I put them there. But I had to let him know that I had been praying for a skillet, and I don't know why he put the skillets out there, but that God had used him to answer my prayer. And here's my point, and here's what God is saying to me, because I have a lot of things out there that I have been in prayer to God about, that I want to see answered, that I'm waiting for something to happen. And God just reminded me through this story from a few years ago that so often we're looking for answers, and if you're like me, you expect it to come from over there, and you're looking over there. But sometimes God just wants to do something different. And I would have never expected for a ministry to come out of going to take household items to help victims in a fire. And I never expected to find a skillet out by a mailbox, and much less one skillet, but two skillets. And so I think that what God has reminded me today is a lot of the answers to my prayers, they may not come from places that I expect them. They may not look like I expected them to look. So it reminds me today, and I pray it will be a reminder to you, just to follow down the path that He's leading you, to ask Him for what you need, and to pay attention. Because if you don't, and you are set to find your answer and to have it come in a certain way, which we so often project how God is going to do this, that we may just miss the blessing that He has just set right off the path for us. I know it was such a blessing to be able to tell Lachelle that I had prayed for a skillet and that God didn't give me one, but He gave me two skillets to help her family. And what a joy it was to hear that from her, because it reminded her that God was mindful of her. And it reminded me that God heard my prayer and that He does things different than I expect. His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are far above ours. So I hope that'll be encouragement for you today. And remember to keep asking, keep seeking, and keep knocking, because I believe that you will hear from Him. Maybe not in the way you expected, but it's guaranteed that He knows where you are, He knows your needs, and He sees you, and He will respond. This is Be His Girl, reporting all the things she's seen and heard from the desert. Thanks for joining me.